Welcome to our conversation with the remarkable Dr. Angel Jones. Dr. Jones' groundbreaking research focused on racism, impact on mental health, racial microaggression, racial battle fatigue, and gender racism. Committed to the democratization of knowledge, she advocates for open access. Pioneering the role of public scholar, she uses social media as a conduit to spread knowledge. Today, we will dip into her journey, illuminating her experience as Afro-Latina, a first-generation college graduate, and her work as an educator, an activist, and now published author. Please welcome Dr. Angel Jones.
Hi. Hey. Can I tell you what? That is like one of the best intros I've ever gotten. Like, it's so good. Like, there are parts I want to take from it and use for my bio moving forward. You make me sound so dope. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So we are going to start with the questions. Sure. Would you please share what it means to be Afro-Latina and first generation? What challenged you and what surprised you?
Sure. Well, hey, y'all. I am Angel Jones. My pronouns are she, her, and Aya. I am a proud first-generation college student. And so what that means is I'm the first in my family to go to college. I'm both undergrad now, having my PhD. And to me, it's been something that makes me very proud because it makes my family proud. And a lot of what I do is for them, especially for my mom. She was a single mom. And she really sacrificed everything for me to be where I'm at right now. So that just means the world to me. As an Afro-Latina, to me, it's really acknowledging the African ancestry, acknowledging the fact that I am a Black woman. I think oftentimes folks see being Black and being Latina as separate things, but they are not. So for me specifically, I refer to myself as an Afro-Latina to acknowledge the African ancestry that I have as well.
Okay, thank you for that. What led you to become an educator?
I feel like it was my calling. I feel like I tried to run from it. In undergrad, my first major was education, so that's how I went in to undergrad. But then I took a political science class and fell in love with that. So I ended up getting my degree in political science and then double minoring in Africana studies and sociology. But then I started working in the community and just kind of fell in love. So I ended up getting my master's in school counseling. And then my PhD in education. And I just love the ability to show people how dope they are, to really just educate people, to be able to tell stories that I feel like folks don't want to tell. So to me, being an educator is my favorite thing in the world. It's what wakes me up in the morning. It makes my heart go pitter patter. I just love being able to do it, especially because I can do it in so many different facets, right? Like, it's not just being a teacher in the classroom, right? So the work I do in the public, the work I do in social media, to me, is all within my role as an educator.
You still suffer from imposter syndrome after all your work and accomplishments?
Absolutely, all the time, all the time. I feel like I just want so badly to do this work for us, right? So I think I often question, like, am I doing enough for us? Us being the community, marginalized folks, our students. So not just like, am I good enough? Although, I'm human, so I struggle with that too. But like, it's just this, I feel like sometimes I'm doing the most because I'm exhausted and doing so much. But at the same time, like, can I be doing something else? Can I be doing something better for us? So I definitely struggle with that, but I have a dope support system that helps me. Especially my students, like, they're so proud of me and my work, and they love to, brag about me. So I'm like, I must be doing something right. So on those days where I'm questioning myself, I have friends and family and students that remind me that I am doing a good job.
And why does your research focus on impact of racism and mental health?
Just I think mental health is so important. Like I said, I started in school in school counseling, so just looking at the mental health impacts of that. But then I feel like folks don't really acknowledge the role that racism plays on our mental health, right? So us as people of color, right, we deal with, I guess, regular mental health issues that everyone else deals with as well. But then there are these added, I guess, obstacles and consequences and factors that kind of play a role. So to me, it's really important to highlight that for the world to see the negative consequences of racism, but then also for us to see it. I think we're just so used to experiencing racism that we don't even see the connection between how it's impacting our physical health, our mental health. So I really want to make sure that I'm calling attention to that.
Yes, when I was reading your book, one of the things that I remember reading is said that some people deal with microaggressions, and because they deal with it so often that they're not even conscious of it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I feel like it's so normalized, but it's not normal, right? Like it shouldn't be normal. But I feel like because we're so used to doing, we're like, oh, that's just how it is. But no, it shouldn't be like that. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge it, so that way then we can treat kind of the consequences that we're experiencing.
And that leads us to our next question: what is racial battle fatigue?
So it's a concept that was coined by Dr. William A. Smith at the University of Utah. And it's really talking about both the psychological and the physiological consequences of experiencing racism. So some of those psychological consequences are increased anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. But then there are also these physical manifestations in our body as well. So research shows that we experience tension headaches, high blood pressure, elevated heart rate, stomach ulcers, right? All of these physical things that are happening to our bodies because of the racism we experience.
I know that you mentioned in some of your studies that people don't often get diagnosed or about mental health, or they feel ashamed. Do you think now it's still going on, or the data shows that it has changed?
Both. So I would say that there's still a stigma when it comes to mental health in general. I think it's changing a little bit just because folks are being more open about it. So for me, for example, I'm very open on my platform in my book just about my own mental health struggles. I take meds every single day. I see a therapist, and I'm very open about that. And I think that then invites other people to be open about their own struggles. And like I said, I also do this research so that we can know, there are things that are happening to you, and you are not the only one. Every time I talk about racial battle fatigue, I always get some form of oh, that's what's happening, right? Because they're experiencing it, but they don't have a name for it. So once they're learning, they're just oh, so I'm not crazy. And I'm like, no, you're not. This is what's happening to you, and this is why.
Thank you. Why are you making your work open access and intellectually accessible?
Because this work is for the community. I think folks, especially within academia, say that we do this work for the community, but then we don't make it accessible to the community, and I think that's trash. So I always say I share my work with the academy, but I do it for the community, right? So for one, it needs to be physically accessible to them, right? So I put my research articles and the research I'm doing in Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and things like that. But I also need to make it intellectually accessible, and that doesn't mean dumbing things down, because I don't believe that. But I just don't get caught up in jargon and fancy words to make myself feel good, because I don't use that in real life anyway. Right. So the way I talk to you is how I talk to my kids, my students, my mama. I'm this person all the time. So I'm not going to put something out there that they then can't read. And even in my journal articles, I'm very conscious of the language I use, because I never want to write an article about women who then can't read that article. That to me just doesn't make any sense.
And I want to thank you for that. I love reading your book, and I gotta say it took me 2 days because I couldn't put it down.
Thank you for that.
Can you share the counter story, a letter to your younger self?
I love counter storytelling, just because it allows us to tell our stories in whatever way makes sense to us. And I've done them in a bunch of different ways. I like letters. I like to do poems, spoken word. I have some journal entry counter stories that I'm doing in an upcoming paper. But the one in terms of to my younger self, that one was important to me because there were things that I needed to hear when I was younger that I didn't, right? So I want to be for people what I needed when I was younger. Just because I feel like there was so much trauma and mental health issues I went through and self-esteem issues because I didn't have someone telling me certain things or saying certain things or looking like me. So I want to make sure that I'm being intentional about creating that space for other people. Before I begin this letter, let me start by telling you that you are Black, beautiful, and your Blackness is also beautiful. I need you to hear that because you live in a world that surrounds you with images that will convince you of the contrary. You will learn very early to hate parts of your body that don't align with Eurocentric standards of beauty. You will get your first relaxer at 8 years old because you want to look like the girls you see on TV. You'll feel good for a little while until you realize that it's not just in white shows that you do not see yourself. You will watch Novelas with Mami and Sábado Gigante with Abuelita and see lots of beautiful Latina women, but none of them will look like you. Unless, of course, they're the housekeeper or the funny one. You'll also get excited about each month's new issue of La Latina magazine because you love the idea of Latina women being celebrated, only to be disappointed when you never see women that look like you on the cover. This will cause you to constantly battle with two questions. Do I not see people that look like me because Black isn't beautiful? Or am I not considered Latina because I'm Black? Mijita, I assure you that the lack of representation you see around you has nothing to do with your beauty or Latinidad. You are beautiful, you are Latina, and the small-minded anti-Black attitudes of others will never change that. But I understand that it'll take you time to truly believe that, because when you get to college, you'll go to Latino events on campus with your best friend, and you'll quickly notice how she is embraced by the community while you are ignored. You will feel lost because you spent your whole life in a Latino household, but won't feel at home with your Latino peers on campus. But don't worry, you'll use this as an opportunity to explore your Blackness and you'll fall in love with it. You'll meet other Afro-Latinos on campus that will not only allow you to feel seen and heard, but they will make you feel even more proud to be Latino than you ever thought possible. But be careful, because once you graduate, you'll return home to a place that isn't as proud of your Blackness as you are. For example, your decision to cut off your hair and go natural will be questioned and seen as radical. When you talk about wanting to travel to Africa, they'll try to convince you that Europe is a better idea. And when you try to explain to your family that you experience racism on a regular basis, not only will they not be able to relate, but they will also question the validity of what you're sharing. Prepare yourself, mija, because one day you'll be walking down the street and you'll be harassed by a car full of white boys who will scream at you and throw things. The first object will hit you so hard in the back that it causes you to fall to the ground. And although it will hurt and leave bruises on your body, it will pale in comparison to the pain you feel when mommy asks, how do you know the attack was racial? In that moment, you'll realize that she will never know what it's like to be a Black woman. And because of that, what you share with her will always just be stories and never personal experiences. You will feel invalidated, but know that she loves you and wishes she could protect you from it all, even if she can't understand it. And as much as I would love to tell you that it'll get better, I can't. Because as I sit here and write this letter, I still struggle feeling unseen and unwanted in our community. Although I'm used to being the only Black face in academic and professional spaces, the feeling of being othered hits differently when you're made to feel like an outsider in a room full of Latinos. I love a community that doesn't always love me back. But I haven't let that stop me, and neither will you. You are powerful beyond measure and will make a difference in the lives of many. Con amor y apoyo, a prouder version of yourself.
Do you think critical race theory should be taught in K through 12 schools?
Surprisingly, no. I think folks don't expect me to say that because I am a critical race scholar. I'm president of the Critical Race Studies and Education Association. But CRT, which is the theoretical framework that acknowledges the roles that race and racism play within the multiple systems in our country, right? So whether it's the educational system, the legal system, healthcare system, and so on. But it was created out of legal studies. So it's taught in law schools, in grad schools, in PhD programs, because it's a theoretical framework that we're using for research. That is not what K-12 students are doing, right? Like we're not teaching 6-year-old theory, right? And now that's not to say that we shouldn't talk about race and we shouldn't talk about the impact that race is having on our everyday lives. Like that should absolutely be taught in schools, but CRT specifically wasn't created for K-12. It was created for researchers. And I think folks have made it this like big bad wolf and made it like really scary and put anything race related under it and kind of like got rid of all of it. But we're not teaching CRT in schools because it's for grad school and research-based things, but we should absolutely be teaching race and racism.
Where can people purchase your book?
They can buy it on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble. They can also do it through the publisher. If they see me in real life, I always have copies on me. Like I keep them in my purse. I keep them in my glove compartment. Like there's always a copy of my book with me.
So I do want to let everyone know that you could also ask your public library, if you can afford it, to request the book, and you guys are able to check it out and read it.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I want to thank you for your time, Dr. Jones, and want to ask you if there's anything else you want to add.
I just want people to know how dope they are. I think we live in a world where people are put down, especially women of color, and we are so much doper than we acknowledge. So I'm telling you, anyone who's watching and listening, you are incredible.
And I don't know if you want to share this, but I know you do live talks via social media. I don't know if you want to share like the times or where the people can find you.
Yeah, I actually need to get back to someone asked me about that because I used to do a show every Monday night called Counter Story, where I would bring on different academics or folks in the field, and then on Thursday nights I used to do one with my bestie called Unapologetic, and she's a white woman, and we would just really just like lay it out, like just call out all the nonsense that's been happening. But we've been so busy. But this is the third time it's come up in the last week. So I'm like, maybe the world is telling me that I need to bring it back. So stay tuned. That should be on my Instagram soon. And my Instagram is Angel Jones, PhD.
Thank you for that.